Malaysia's opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim is cleared of sodomy charges. The surprise verdict comes after a 2-year trial, with many believing the accusations had been politically motivated. Now Anwar is free to lead an opposition alliance against the ruling coalition in upcoming elections. I'm Ibrahim. On this edition of 101 East, we ask just how will Anwar's acquittal change Malaysia's political arena? But first, CHOU looks at the events leading up to what could be a turning point in the country.
After more than 50 postponements over 2 years, the trial is finally over. Malaysia's opposition leader, Anwar Ibrahim, has been acquitted of sodomy, which is illegal in the Muslim-majority nation. The High Court says there is not enough evidence. An ecstatic Anwar meets his thousands of supporters outside the court on the day of the verdict.
We must focus on the next general elections because we want the reform agenda, we want independent judiciary, no perception of worry or concern, free media, rid the country of endemic corruption.
With the next election expected this year, the verdict is a boost for the opposition coalition, People's Alliance. This is the second time Anwar has fought sodomy charges. The acquittal is just the latest of many twists and turns in his political life. In the 1990s, Anwar was a deputy prime minister, next in line to succeed then Premier Mahathir Mohamad. His meteoric rise was matched by a spectacular downfall in 1998 after the two fell out. Anwar was jailed on sodomy and corruption charges, widely seen as politically motivated accusations. It was a traumatic time for his family.
When this thing happened in 1998, I wasn't actually prepared, so I had to be strong. I didn't expect him to be beaten up, and I was actually one of the darkest moments in my entire life was being told that he died in jail on the second day, and I almost went berserk.
It turned out to be a false rumor, but Anwar's political life was dying. His wife, Wan AZIZAH, kept it on life support, forming what became the People's Justice Party that he would eventually lead. His daughter, NURUL, was thrown into the political spotlight as a teenager, campaigning internationally for his release. Now an opposition member of parliament, she remembers how her mother kept Anwar's comeback dreams alive.
She really represented the kind of strength, tempered, calm, full of resolve that was needed to help us navigate our way despite the chaotic circumstances.
Anwar spent 6 years in jail before the federal court overturned his sodomy charge. His new party then formed an alliance with Islamic Party PAS and the more liberal Democratic Action Party for the 2008 general election. They made unprecedented gains on ruling coalition Barisan Nasional, denying it a 2/3 majority in parliament. But new problems emerged. Anwar's former aide, Saiful Bukhari, made a police report accusing Anwar of sodomizing him. Saiful had met Prime Minister Najib Razak a few days before he went to the police. One of the reasons opposition supporters believe the subsequent trial was a government conspiracy. The ruling United Malays National Organisation, or UMNO, rejects the claim. We spoke with KHAIRY JAMALUDDIN, an UMNO MP and its youth wing chief.
To say that it's a conspiracy is I think, insulting to Malaysians who see this as a private issue between the complainant, Saiful Bukhari, and Anwar. Somebody must have enthusiastically said, I can get you an appointment to see the PM because this involves Anwar, opposition figure. Got to see the PM, but Datuk Sri Najib was very clear and he's publicly said that the moment Saiful said, this is what happened. He said, look, this has nothing to do with me. If you want to make a complaint, go and see the police.
Now, the Prime Minister said that the chat was also about Saiful's scholarship application. It seems a bit of a stretch for an individual to approach the Prime Minister to talk about scholarship.
He may have used that opportunity to ask for a scholarship, but as I said, I agree. I mean, perception-wise, it sounds funny that just some ordinary young Malaysian would be able to secure a meeting with the Prime Minister.
With a general election on the horizon, KHAIRY criticizes the opposition coalition for its lack of cohesion and firm policies. Made up of parties with different ideologies, many see it as a marriage of convenience, kept together by Anwar with promises of power.
We offer much more than that. We offer policies, we offer programs for the public, and we're not just obsessed with one individual.
How much of a threat really is this man to the government currently?
The only threat he poses is that he keeps them together, that's all. But like I said, as far as the future of this country is concerned, I think we should move on.
How would it benefit the government in terms of moving on if he were out of the way?
Well, I think one of the hang-ups in Malaysian politics is that we are still dragged down by individual legacies. Anwar is one of them, and there are others. And I think we need to move on from these tall shadows because they are not productive.
In the days leading up to the verdict, Anwar Ibrahim toured the nation to drum up support for the opposition and himself.
Conscience of the majority.
His critics accuse him of using a political platform to try and influence the verdict of a private court case. But Anwar Ibrahim's camp maintains that this is a government conspiracy to cripple the opposition. Either way, it's been a show of how personalities overshadow politics in Malaysia. We meet Anwar a day before the verdict.
Critics tend to try and turn it very personal. This has been their tactic since '98. They turn it personal. We are talking about judicial independence. We are talking about human rights. We are talking about honor, either of Anwar or of Malaysians. We don't win the elections just because Anwar wins the case. We win the elections because we have a better economic program. We want to have a mature democracy.
Compared to 1998, you had a much better crack. This time, you were able to engage your own lawyers. You were able to apply for numerous postponements to try and present your case and fight your case. So in that sense, how can you still say that there is judicial influence by the executive?
Of course I was given postponement, but were we able to bring the key witnesses? No. Were we given the notes of examinations by doctors in any criminal trial, which it is a standard practice all over the world? No. You want me to be charged? I would like to see the police report. It took us 6 months to get the report.
Do you think you're a victim of a trap?
No. If it is a trap, they will be more successful.
On the 9th of January, Anwar Ibrahim walked out of court a free man. But he maintains the judiciary is not independent. Former Chief Justice ZAKI AZMI, who retired in September, disagrees.
These decisions are made objectively, independently by the judges according to the law. But when the decision is against that particular person, whoever he may be, then they say the courts are biased. When they complain, it's the same case over and over again that they complain. And those are the 3 or 4 cases, and they're all politically, flavored cases.
Whether or not the trial was a conspiracy, Anwar Ibrahim's acquittal has a political impact.
Anwar has his large following, and then this country is split almost halfway between those who supported the ruling coalition and those in the opposition pack. Let's hope that common sense or good sense prevails, so that people won't get so over emotional about one man, and his political struggle.
Beyond the man, the verdict offers Malaysian politicians a platform to move on and focus on how best to run the country. and that perhaps is the most critical turning point the nation needs ahead of the polls.
For more on the possible impact Anwar's verdict could have on Malaysia's political landscape, we're in Kuala Lumpur and we're joined by RAFIZI, the chief strategist of the opposition National Justice Party led by Anwar Ibrahim. ABDUL DAHLAN is a member of parliament from the ruling UMNO party. And Ibrahim SUFFIAN, who heads the Merdeka Centre, an independent opinion survey organisation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today. Now, this was, by and large, a surprise verdict because most people, as a poll has shown, expected Anwar to go to jail. I'll just start with you first, Rafizi. Why do you think this verdict came about?
I suppose because the ruling party, Barisan Nasional, doesn't have any choice. They have to protect their Malay votes, and anything worse than an acquittal will mean that the Malay votes will swing to Pakatan Rakyat. That will just mean forfeiting the next general election.
So just from the onset here, you are suggesting that the ruling coalition does have influence on the judicial system here in Malaysia?
Yes. I mean, I know the acquittal was a good news for everyone, but I think it's very premature to conclude that means that signals the revival of judiciary independence in the country.
What is your evidence, though? That's a large accusation. What is your evidence?
Because the two bases that the court ruled in favor of Anwar yesterday was, number one, the complainant's credibility was suspect, and number two, there was evidence that DNA was tampered with when it was brought to court. These two bases were the very same bases that were questioned by the defense lawyers at the beginning before Anwar was called to defend. So if the court was independent from the very beginning, Anwar didn't have to go to defend himself in the court in the first place. So it was very clear that it was a last-minute decision, and it's highly probable that that have a lot to do with political interference as well.
Abdul Rahman, what do you say to that?
Well, the opposition, including my friend Rafizi, never cease to amuse me. This is another overstretched imagination. There was no interference whatsoever as far as the executive is concerned.
Not at your level, maybe at higher level.
No.
Could that be a possibility?
No, it is not. As I said, if you look at the case, it was clearly a private citizen's charge or alleged assault, sexual assault.
How do you then explain the surprise, the large surprise in Malaysia to this verdict when everyone expected a conviction?
Well, thanks to Rafizi and his team. They have created a story where the executive has been all over the judiciary, which I think is not right. And this is something, it's actually, this trial is made in heaven for them.
In what way? How so?
Well, either way, it would go. It would be extremely politically advantageous for them. So from the very beginning, we have made it very clear this is an irritation, it's a distraction of the bigger issue that the government is trying to push through. Transformation programs. You know, every time we talk about giving democratic space for Malaysia, you know, we are overshadowed by this. So no one in Barisan Nasional would want this to happen.
Ibrahim, let me just draw you into the discussion here. Now, the Information Minister, soon after the verdict was read out, said that this verdict proves the government does not hold sway over the judge's decision. Would you agree?
Well, I think that's a developing idea among the Malaysian public. In the polling that we have done in the past, and we've done, I think, at least 2 surveys among Malaysian publics with respect to the Anwar trial and the allegations and the court proceedings, majority of Malaysians actually believe that the charges against him were politically motivated. So it doesn't go as far as saying that the executive is interfering in the work of the judiciary, but there was widespread perception, at least amongst the Malaysian electorate, that there is some form of interference. And I think the verdict yesterday allows the government to step away from that, allows them to say that it's not. And I think this is going to be another field of debate, whether there was or wasn't. And I think people are going to feel hopeful out of this, and they will look at future court rulings to see whether this is a trend that continues.
That's a very interesting point. Now, but this trial wasn't just played out in the courts itself, it was also played out in the media. There have been some who say that perhaps the biasness that the media has may change. Would you agree?
If UMNO or Barisan Nasional, the ruling parties, had nothing to do with this trial, if it's purely a citizen's complaint against Anwar Ibrahim, the whole full force of the government machinery, be it media, be it government trainings program for our civil servants, which repeatedly made a judgment that Anwar Ibrahim was guilty, the whole force would not have been moved against Anwar Ibrahim.
Well, look, I think the Malaysians are tired of this right after the verdict. I pleaded to the prosecution not to appeal this case. I think Malaysians do need a reset button, and this is an opportunity for Malaysians to press that reset button in a way.
When you say a reset button, are you saying perhaps reformation of the party, of the ruling coalition?
No,
of the way the government works?
The entire psyche of Malaysians when they're looking at politics in this country. I mean, everything is politicized. When the bodyguard of one AZIZAH fell sick and it was attributed to someone in Barisan, poisoning him, it's ridiculous now. It has come to a stage where, I suppose both sides, in a way.
I'm glad you said that. Okay.
Both sides have come to a stage where it is almost ridiculous.
That's an interesting point that you raise. It does seem here in Malaysia that politics is based on personalities rather than policies. Ibrahim, do you think after this verdict, after this case has been closed, that now with the upcoming elections, Malaysians will be able to focus more on policies rather than personalities?
I think that's the hope, because in the Malaysian setting, personalities and leadership remains important because they are the translators of policy, they are the translators of ideas and spreading up to the general members of the populace. So the credibility of individual leaders still matter very highly for the average Malaysian. But I think the verdict yesterday, and if the prosecution decides not to pursue with an appeal, opens up this space where at least personalities do not overshadow the policies and the issues confronting the people. So it allows for, hopefully, a new kind of politics where we discuss substantive issues as opposed to more emotive or sensational.
A more matured politics
more
in
matured,
Malaysia.
yeah.
Now, Anwar Ibrahim is a huge personality himself. With everything he's been through, with all the political baggage, with all the so-called injustice that he's faced, do you think he will make a good leader for the opposition?
My take from yesterday's verdict is that it has benefited the Prime Minister as well as Anwar Ibrahim. So it's up to both individuals to make the most
In what way?
of it.
How has it benefited both of them?
Well, for Prime Minister Najib, it has allowed him to come across to the world stage and say that we are implementing the democratic reforms, we are freeing our judiciary. For Anwar, it lifts this huge baggage of him and allows him to communicate directly with the main core constituency that he's supposed to campaign, the Malay Muslim electorate, which I think from the surveys that we've done, continued to have a kind of doubt over him about his morality, about the veracity of the case. With the verdict, that element of doubt has been removed.
Here in Malaysia, there's a lot of talk about one Malaysia, trying to overcome the racial boundaries, the religious boundaries that are there. Do you think Anwar Ibrahim, with all the baggage that he has with him, would be able to overcome that and actually unite Malaysia?
I'm more than confident because he was the one who spoke about this and the first Malay leader who actually had the courage to talk to the Malays and say we have to move away from racially divisive policies. And that was done prior to 2008 election. In fact, Prime Minister Najib's One Malaysia concept, in my opinion, is a response to Anwar Ibrahim's championing that. Because for once, Pakatan Rakyat, the opposition coalition, managed to position ourselves as the truly multiracial coalition for this country, which was, to the credit of BN, was the strength of BN for the last 50 years. So Najib has to compete, but of course, he has to go more than sloganeering and public relations, which Anwar has done by substance before the 2008 election. With this acquittal, he can go back to that serious business and engage the Malay voters to move beyond racial policies for the next election.
Abdul, Rahman, can I just bring you in here now? A majority of UMNO's support comes from the Malay Muslims here in Malaysia. How do you think they will perceive Anwar now after this verdict?
Well, there are several reasons why a particular Malay form of opinion about Anwar Ibrahim. It is just not about the sodomy case. It has been seen as a very a leader which is disconnected with the rural Malay. To me, they have seen Anwar Ibrahim since the very beginning. When he joined UMNO, he was fixated with the desire to become the Prime Minister. But in any case, I think, again, I go back to my first statement, which is a reset button. I think right now, the Malaysian people will have the opportunity to choose between a Prime Minister with solid experience and able to lead a very strong government with lasting reforms, tangible, real reforms, compared to a person who, leading a coalition of hugely different ideological parties.
Do you think he is the man to actually galvanize the opposition?
It's no secret that the ideological differences between the Islamic Party and the Democratic Action Party are vast. And he somehow has been able, through his charm, charisma, and persuasive abilities, allowed the leaders of these two very disparate parties to work together. But I think moving beyond Anwar, a lot of the leaders, especially the mid-level leaders in the opposition, has also smelled power. They understand that if they can keep things together, they can maintain some kind of moderation in their approach and rhetorics, it brings them closer to Putrajaya, to political power at the federal level. And certainly in the 2008 general elections that we've seen, these parties have been able to form working coalitions at state level, and this has provided them with experience. What happens the day after is something for us to ponder. But Anwar does have the capability to bring people together. He is, in some sense, the glue that holds the opposition
He is certainly a very charismatic character. Yeah. It certainly sounds like a whole new era is dawning on Malaysia. Rafizi, in the Arab countries, we've seen the Arab Spring. Are we about to see a Malaysia Spring?
Our parties have never rolled out something like Malaysian Spring happening unless the kind of reforms promised by the ruling parties is manifested very quickly, because people want to see results and not just slogans and campaigns.
Abdul Rahman, now UMNO has been in power for over 50 years now. Is it time for UMNO to press that reset button on itself?
Well, we have pressed the reset button when we had a new leadership. We would just like to invite the opposition to press the reset button as well and go back to the middle ground, forget about all this, what Ibrahim has been saying, politics of personalities and all that, and let's talk about real issues.
Okay, now Ibrahim, do you think it's time for a Malaysian Spring or an UMNO Spring?
Well, I think UMNO
or an UMNO Spring Clean?
Well, UMNO, to their credit, has recognized the problems arising from the 2008 elections. They have consulted people, they have made the kind of changes both at the party level as well as at the governmental level. But it is a very large organization with over 3 million members. So initiating this change, one has to really overcome a great deal of inertia. And so I think there is clear realization among senior leaders in UMNO that the country needs changing. They realize the demographics and the economic factors of the country has changed and shifted. And that's manifested in the reform or transformation agenda of the Prime Minister. But getting this kind of idea and message to cascade down into the organization and grassroots leadership is much, much more difficult. And so we can see a great disconnect between the ideas and speeches espoused by top leaders and some people lower down the line. And so, things like corruption and so on keeps coming back, and that undercuts the credibility of the ruling party. So I'm sure they're aware of this. They're taking steps to contain it, but the time is running short, and people are much, much more have greater access to information than ever before. So the cycle to which they have to operate really has to be ramped up.
It's certainly going to be very interesting in the next few months, shall we say.
Right.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for speaking with us today. That's all the time we have for this edition of 101 East. You can always follow the program through our website, podcast, Facebook and Twitter. From all the team here in Kuala Lumpur, thanks for watching.